Welcome back to another Canon Chat where we talk about topics that are bigger than the movie news. Today we are going to talk about character motivations. Sal, we talk about comic book superhero movies, which of course is fiction. And when you're talking about fiction, you definitely have to give a real reason for the characters to do what they're doing in order for fans to fall in love with them, hate them, or empathize with them, whatever it may be. Today we're talking about a very specific motivation. The idea of a death in the family motivating a character to do whatever they're going to do. Sure. We've seen this throughout countless comic book movies. We've seen it throughout countless movies in general. The most famous example is probably
Batman.
Exactly. So Batman loses his parents in front of his eyes, and it starts him on this journey to become the greatest detective in the world. Whatever you want to call him, the Dark Knight, the Bat of Gotham, whatever you want to call him. It all started with seeing his parents die. And we've seen this in so many other places. Let's start off real quick. What are some places where you think it really, really works outside of Batman, whether it be a movie, a comic book, or anything?
Put me on the spot. Where it really works where parents died.
Or any family member. It doesn't have to be parents. Because I think we see this throughout the family. I will say... just on the other side of Batman, Superman. I think that's a strong one because it's an entire race. I mean, of course, he was a child, so he didn't really know anyone. So his parents is going to be the first one that he connects to. But eventually, you get the Last Son of Krypton theme, and you realize that a whole race of people are gone, and so that puts a different amount of stress on your shoulders. But I think that's one example where, the magnitude of it definitely can shape what a person does.
Yeah, I would say so. That's a good example, and I'm not good at thinking of things out of nowhere. But yeah, I will agree with the Krypton thing, just because it's very, it's a weird concept in terms of, like you just said, it's a whole race. So you have this person who didn't know he knew he was different, but he didn't know where he was from. And then once he does find that out, he has not only the pressure of the human race on him with all this power, he has the pressure of the race that he came from, and to honor them and honor their deaths that they've had, and show that just because he's different and he's this person, that he was this person, that he can still represent them in a way. So it's just the concept of it is different than just a normal death like Batman is. So,
do you well, sticking on that, I know what you feel about the character, but do you feel that is a plausible motivation for Batman? We've seen, if you haven't seen YouTube, there's documentaries about the psychology of Bruce Wayne and Batman and what that would take and all that different things. So after looking at all these years of Batman, what do you think about that driving force?
I think if you look at his just passion or obsession, if you want to call it, with stopping crime and with bringing justice to his city, then it does, there is a reason, and it does. I do agree with using the death of his mom and dad as a catalyst for his being, basically. So, but then you can also say that was the reason he has this passion. So then you can go back to the beginning and say then he would have never had that had the parents died. So would it even been the same story had the parents not died? What if he just one day decided, and I'm not sure if his original story was that his parents died. They might have come up with that a little bit later, or I could be wrong. But especially in the 50s, or I don't know, when 40s maybe.
Before he became like the darker.
Yeah,
character.
they had him killing and stuff like that. So that's why I say I don't think his parents were dead in the original Batman. Um, but yeah, especially in those times when these characters got created, their origin stories weren't what they were now. Nothing specific, again, I'm not sure. But so if you think of it like that, you're kind of thinking of, well, this guy just wants to, stop crime, but then you don't have that reason. So I think it's justifiable, especially with Batman, that you have something as strong as a death to someone that you love be your motivation and use that as a driving force.
All right, so let's look at a specific example that kind of sparked this for me. Movie we both enjoy, Captain America: Civil War. Specifically looking at the character of Helmut Zemo, which was Baron Zemo in the comics, a foe of Captain America historically, someone that lived during the time of Captain America, has like some weird science and powers that he's was experimenting with. A lot like Red Skull, where whatever he shows back up in the present. A very comic book type background. In the movie, we've seen that completely thrown out of the window, and we're given ex military man from Sokovia who lost his family in the Age of Ultron thing and sought out to break up the Avengers from within. So we take this larger than life character, for a better lack of better words, and we boil it down to this to bring it ground level somewhat. But you throw a lot of stuff out and just make it what it is. So first off, how did you feel about that character and his motivation? Because it was a big reveal at the end. And then secondly, how do you feel about what they did with the actual Zemo character from the comics?
So I think having them have him lose his family and that be his motivation is very humanizing, and it's very relatable, and it's not just this guy out for destruction for no reason. You have your, like you said, Red Skull, who kind of just is evil. But then you need that villain. You need the General Zod's who think that they're doing good, or who think that what they're gonna do is gonna make them feel better or justify their actions. So I think it's very, like I said, humanizing, and makes for an interesting character. And changing him up from the comics to that, obviously, a very smart thing to do, and just makes that it kind of makes that character deeper than he was within the comics. So I liked it, and I thought it was a good move on Marvel's part to kind of change that up.
All right, so you actually liked it. I wasn't as big of a fan. As far as the Zemo character from the comics, I don't care too much. He's not like a character that I'm invested that much in. However, within the context of the movie, once the reveal kind of was what it was very like disappointing to me. It's just, I agree it's humanizing, but it just seemed like the scope that he went through over that, it didn't add up to me.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm not gonna go into the plot holes of the story and all that. It's just that thinking about all the stuff he did over the years, because of that, it felt like it wasn't big enough to really cause him to do what he did. I mean, especially against the Avengers, who are like the most powerful people out there.
Yeah.
So, as far as changing the character, fine. I just thought that motivation was, I don't know, it wasn't strong enough for me. And then on the flip side, we have Iron Man. And this outright was an issue with me, because they did the whole death of his parents by Winter Soldier, which causes him to go, nuts. And I get it, but it's just, by the time we got to that point, with the whole Sokovia Accords and everything, and the ideological differences, it was like, okay, like this is what they're going to use to make the, the fight, and I just felt like it was a cop out at that point. What'd you think about it?
Yeah, I can agree with you on that. Um, like you just said, the build up was this kind of general idea, and at the same time, very specific idea, like you said, of ideologies clashing, and that was at the core of the movie. And then at the end, like you're just like, but this is really why you guys are physically fighting. So yeah, I agree that it was a cop out, but I also think that it kind of makes for it kind of raised the stakes as well, even if you did see it as a cop out. So I think you kind of have to think of like movies down the line, especially in this specific example. You're thinking of the next Infinity Wars. So I feel like it wouldn't have been as strong an issue had it just been just the ideologies. It's like you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. If you just stuck with the ideologies, then down the road it might that conflict might not have been as strong to have repercussions or interest within the next movie in the story. But with the killing, you have a cop out, but then you do have that kind of strong consequences. So if they're thinking about future stuff, I can agree with them on why they did that. So.
All right, and me and Sal, we're not psychologists by any means. We're not going to debate the trauma of losing a family member, but I want to ask a very simple question: Does the comic book movie world, or comic books in general, have a problem with overusing the death of a family member as character motivation, which we've seen in just countless examples? I mean, we talked about Batman and his parents dying. We talked about Superman, Zemo, Iron Man, and Civil War. Spider-Man's uncles dying, his parents dying. Just almost like everywhere we see like Ghost Rider. We've seen Luke Cage. We just see it just
Green Lantern.
Green Lantern, Daredevil. His dad died. It's almost everywhere you look. Flash, his mom died. Like it's everywhere. So
yeah.
What do you think about that?
I think it was kind of like I don't want to call it a fad, but when they started writing these characters and writing their origin stories, this was all happening a lot within. I mean, some of them are older, some of them are a lot newer, but with all the same scope of comic books becoming kind of a global, not even phenomenon, but becoming global thing. So in that sense, I think, people kind of just jumped on the train and be like, well, this is really strong motivation for their action, so let's just do it anyways. Everyone else is doing it. I'm not sure on like characters nowadays that are getting created, because it's very hard for a new character to be created and still get the recognition that someone like a Batman or a Spider-Man gets. So I'm not sure on if they're still doing that nowadays with like newer characters and having their origin stories include someone close to them dying. But I can't imagine that they are. I feel like people are starting to get away from that and thinking of a little bit more innovative ways for why someone does something. And historically, yes, it has been overused.
Okay. And yeah, I agree with you. I don't know exactly why. Maybe a lot of these things, these characters and these stories are so old that it is a product of the times. It's a product of just what was popular at the time. So I do agree there. So when we're thinking about character motivation, do you have any alternatives that you would like to see? I mean, because we see, especially with the movies, they take liberty in changing things. So it's not like it has to be that one certain way. But if you're thinking about a hero or a character or whatever that you gravitate towards, having someone lose a family member, yes, we, humanize them, we can relate to it. But what other motivations do you think, or have you seen that you feel work better, or that you would like to see, or that's underutilized?
Yeah.
If
Um. Yeah. So I'm trying to think of like. So we just talked with Doctor Strange. He kind of was. I guess this is a general idea. They're kind of forced into changing themselves, whether that's because of a physical ailment or because of they really have no other choice, and it's for themselves. Another one would be I read Animal Man. That one kind of has to do with like family as well, but he has to take up the mantle of Animal Man because his daughter, without getting too confusing, his daughter is the next. I forgot what she's called, but she's basically down the line. She's going to be a very very important person within the story and within that world. But for the time being, Animal Man just has to do it because he has to protect his family and he has to protect his daughter. So there's definitely new ways to come about why someone does something or why a superhero becomes a superhero. But I definitely like the person like Doctor Strange who kind of does a 180 on his personality. You know, he's this cocky, rich person that doesn't have any regard for anyone but himself, and then that all gets taken away, and then they realize the errors of the way, and they have this power, and they're going to use it for something better, to better the world. So I like the changing of someone inside, and that doesn't necessarily happen because someone close to them died.
and with Doctor Strange, I'm not even after the movie. I'm not even totally convinced he is doing it for the betterment of the world. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, because he still kind of is who he is by the end of the movie. He's a little different, and eventually he might get there. But you know, it's because you could make the argument that Doctor Strange is really just trying to compete. He's trying to be the best at something, like he was when he was the best doctor or surgeon or whatever. So you could make that argument that he's doing it out of ego and arrogance,
Mm-hmm.
which is very different. But either way, it's still different. I mean, I even think of someone like Wolverine. Like, you wouldn't, off the top of your head, you wouldn't think about him. But he is not a death in the family. It's a guy that outlives everybody. Like,
Mm-hmm.
everybody dies around him. He's used to that.
Yeah.
It's just the nature of who he actually is. And so, I mean, as far as being a hero, even it's hard to, you could call him anti-hero if you wanted to.
Yeah.
He kind of just does what he does to survive. So, I mean, like you said, there's a lot of different ways to do it, and I think there are, cool ways to do it. Besides, oh, someone killed my dad. Now,
Or like
this
Deadpool.
right.
He was sick and then he became a superhero. Or
Out
not
of,
even a superhero, like an anti-hero, like you said, Wolverine.
yeah, he did it out of necessity, kind of
Yeah.
like Doctor Strange with his injury. And I mean, I think as we keep going, I don't know. I would feel like we're going to see some type of, cultural, political reasoning,
Mm-hmm.
things like that. I mean, we see different characters. I don't know if it's changed their motivation much, but I think we will start to see more religion and culture and race and all that kind of play into it. And I think it's creative ways to do that. I mean, even just talking about the movie Arrival, which I keep talking about,
Mm-hmm.
it's just it's a lot of things you can do just within our everyday life to spark motivation. Because, and I get the death in the family, but I think at the end of the day, it's like depending on who you are, you've seen a lot of people, pass away, whether your family or other people's family. None of them dressed like a bat. None of them is, running around trying to stop crime and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we got the historic hero's journey from just writing in general, and part of the hero's journey is tragedy. And so, I just think in the past, a lot of the characters we know that tragedy is some type of death in the family.
Mm-hmm.
My daughter, my mom, my dad, or something like that. So, yeah. Any other last thoughts on it? I mean, we still probably want to see it,
Yeah.
sparingly.
Especially something in like a film that kind of hits home a lot more than something else would, whatever other motivation that is. But seeing something like that and the visual cues that you get from someone dying and then the visual cues he gets from someone reacting to that death is very strong. And so that isn't going to change, especially because these movies are relatively early and early in their creation. These universes are still being created, so the characters in them are still going to have those same motivations that they've had in the comic books for years, which a lot of them are death in a family. So,
And do we have to see that? Do you think? Do you think for Spider-Man per se, are we going to see Uncle Ben's death again? Even though they said it's not an origin movie, because I even think of like BVS, where you 100% didn't need to open up with the Bruce Wayne thing, but they did. So do you think we have to see that?
I think I think yes, you do, but I don't. I think it's going to be something in terms of like a flashback memory, something like the Batman thing.
But we got to see it to have that connection.
Yeah, and it comes with the character. It's like this is who he is and this is why he's here. I mean, it's basically, well, it's not why he's here, but it is a big motivation for him, and it has been within for his whole longevity in this comic book world. So I think you owe it to Stan Lee and to the character itself that you do that, whether it's a flashback or I don't think it'll be like a live scene, yeah, you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, but it has to hook the audience.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, so that is our Canon Chat for today. So remember, if you like what you saw, go ahead, leave a comment, thumbs up, all that good stuff, subscribe. And if you want more Canon Chat, stick around for more Canon Chat.